welcome back. Welcome to our afternoon Eastern Time session from 1:30 to 3 o'clock in Stream 1. And we're going to start off with two talks in this session, and I'm excited about both of them. The first one is on Escapeling, which is a gamified AI-supported chatbot for collaborative language practice. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. And we have Christian Johnson with us from Germany, and he has two colleagues with him as well, Emma and Maxim, who are going to be part of this presentation also. So we're looking forward to it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Christian. So go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, David. All right, great. Yeah, so of course, thanks everyone for dropping by for this short talk. As David already said, we're going to talk briefly about a kind of collaborative, gamified mobile messaging learning environment for language learning. Just a little overview of what we're going to go through. First, I'll give you kind of the broad picture, and then Emma's going to focus in specifically on some of the learning scenarios that the environment offers. Maxime will take a deep dive on the gamified aspects of this application before really kind of seeing the application in action with a quick demo, before talking about how we evaluated this application in brief. Then we'll look ahead as the project is in fact continuing, before having time for any questions you might want to field. Yeah, so what's the main idea here? Just to kind of pitch it to you, as you probably garnered from the title, we have a mobile messaging Telegram specifically situated language learning application with a kind of science fictional theme titled Escapeling. The idea is to allow users to, within this messaging infrastructure, collaborate on language practice tasks, which are also story contextualized. Here's a screenshot just to give you a taste of what this looks like, but of course you'll get a better sense in the demonstrational video later. What are the main goals of this application? Well, first is, as we can probably sympathize with in this remote setting, to improve language learning outcomes by gamifying and contextualizing tasks in a collaborative setting, which is nevertheless remote. Our target user is approximately intermediate level language learners, maybe high school, middle school age, hence this specific theme we've chosen. And this target group aligns with the test groups from about which you'll hear more later during the evaluation section of this presentation. This would be another shot showing you how this type of interaction will look in practice. Some underlying assumptions before closing off this section. One of the main ideas here is, of course, that these narrative contextualized tasks will improve the learning outcome by enhancing the user engagement, and specifically that these are very task-focused language learning tasks, which are kind of nested within the storyline that the users are trying to progress through. And importantly, that this is a collaborative group setting, right? We are maybe situating this application in a different space than a lot of individual learning scenarios by focusing specifically on collaborative group learning around these tasks. And the assumption here is that this would encourage potentially inter-user support as part of an effective complex learning model. Just to briefly mention the evaluation before continuing, we did maybe some brief concept validation with two groups of high school EFL students of approximately the level that we mentioned as our target group. But Maxime will definitely give us a closer look at this later in the presentation. Yeah, so that's Escapeling in a nutshell. I'll hand it over to Emma to give us a deeper look at the actual learning scenarios.
Thank you, Christian. Yeah, so as we have heard so far, the application has a sci-fi theme and users progress through a story. But as they progress along their escape, they have to complete some tasks, and if they are successful, then they will eventually manage to escape. So in the next slide, we have an overview of these language practice tasks. We have 3 of them at the moment, and they are a sentence correction task, a vocabulary guessing task, and a discussion task. So in the following slide, I will just guide you through an overview of what happens within each of these. So in the sentence correction task, we have a focus on grammar, and one user is randomly selected to review the correctness of one sentence. If the sentence is incorrect, they also must provide a correct alternative. The screenshot on the right is supposed to give you an idea of how this flows within the application, but for all of these examples, we will also get a better look during the demo later on. So the given sentence can be discussed as a group, but eventually one user is responsible for providing an answer, and every user gets their turn. And this is repeated 4 times until the task is completed. Okay, then this is one more screenshot that shows you the sentence was recognized as incorrect, and then the user had to provide the correct alternative here. Then in the vocabulary guessing task, this is somehow similar to the game of taboo. So you're familiar with it. One person knows a word and they have to explain it to the others without using the word itself, but by explaining its meaning. So again, each user in turn receives a word and they have to allow other people to guess it by providing some hints. There is a time limit to do so, and there is also an option to choose a different word if the word that the participant received was not appropriate to them or if they didn't know it. And this, again, is repeated 4 times for every user. So to the right, we see that Christian was trying to make us guess the word herbs, and he gave us some hints to do so. Then in the discussion task, the focus is more on writing, so language production practice. And it is a guided group discussion because participants first receive one text that is meant to introduce the topic of the discussion, and then 3 follow-up questions that are meant to guide the discussion. So to the right, we can see that people have received a text about colors and moods associations. And at the end, this task can be either passed or failed, and that has an impact on storytelling. In the next slide, we can see that after receiving this text, people received a question and they started discussing the topic at hand. So there are 3 questions and 3 minutes to discuss each of these questions, and this is repeated until the end of the task is reached. At the end of the discussion, there is then a poll that is meant to evaluate the success of the task, and we might get back to this in the outcome in the Outlook section, but it was kind of hard for us to evaluate a discussion automatically, because how can you decide whether a discussion was successful or not? And we came up with a couple of metrics that are very tentative for now, and we are working on improving this. But eventually the outcome is communicated. So we have one final slide about this that gives you an overview of how the discussion task flows. So people receive a text, they receive a question, they have 3 minutes to discuss it, and this is repeated 2 more times. And when the discussion is over, there is a moment for evaluation and then participants find out whether they passed or failed this task. And this has a consequence for storytelling, because as we said, the ultimate goal is to escape an alien spaceship. So that is it for a brief overview of the tasks. Again, we will see this in action during the demo, and I will pass it on to Maxime, who will tell us about the gamified components of our application.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. In this part, we'll briefly talk about gamification in escape-playing. First, I will quickly tell you why we gamified escape-playing and also what are the theoretical considerations behind it. And yeah, so basically there's quite a lot of research on gamification in learning, and most papers published have found at least some aspects of learning that get improved or that get affected upon by gamified elements. So this is either that people interact more with the app, or that people's interaction is more productive in the sense they get better results out of that. Or it can also be that they see some more deep internal meaning behind this interaction, or at least some other components, like if it's not intrinsic, then it is extrinsic motivation. But many papers, like the vast majority of them, see at least some improvements because of gamification. So we decided it was quite a safe shot to gamify escape playing. And well, it's also fun to play gamified games, gamified apps, whatever. In escape playing, the main thing we did to gamify it was to introduce achievements. We have two main achievement paths here. These are streaks and badges, and all achievements users earn throughout their games get displayed publicly after each completed game iteration. This was done to kind of give an extra nudge to the most competitive users to activate their social comparison mechanisms to force them to play even better and be more motivated and so on. And another thing was that we kind of needed to find the right balance between not too many and not too few achievements, because we wanted to kind of cultivate a habit of playing escape playing with our achievements. But it has also been shown that too many achievements kind of destroy themselves and they don't work at all. So we kind of balanced that out by having just these streaks and badges. So let's get to streaks now. Well, a streak is something you would normally see in every app that has a streak. So yeah, you get it every second, third, 100th, and so on day you play the application. And the main goal behind it is to avoid regular interaction with your app. So you come back and you come back and you get new streaks. And then to badges. Inside our app, if you complete the game successfully, you can get numbers, digits, and for all these digits, you can get the code cracking badges. And they're supposed to reward your long-term interaction. So if you have lost all your streaks and you haven't been online for a while, you still kind of remain invested with your code cracking badges. And maybe this kind of stimulates you to come back. And for now, these digits are basically the only thing you can unlock inside escape playing. So they serve as a placeholder for some more sophisticated form of unlockable content for now. And now we will show you a demo for you to get a better taste of what escape playing looks like.
After beginning a private chat with the bot, the user is presented with textual storytelling content to enhance the sense of immersion and contextualize upcoming tasks.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Harriet. I'm currently on Earth, but I've been able to hack into the alien ship. I'm going to try and help you escape. Here's what I know. A few decades ago, an alien ship discovered our planet, and now they want to live here. There's only one problem. We're already living here. It looks like their plan is to interrogate you and the others so they can figure out a way to remove all humans from Earth. We need to get you out of there, but first, I need to be sure the signal is coming from you and not the aliens. I can send you the escape codes, but first, you'll have to complete some tasks only humans can solve to verify your identity. You are not alone. There are other humans with you on the spaceship. You will need to work together to escape. And we've got an inside man. Well, alien. His name is Elias. He's a friend. You can trust him. He will explain everything. Okay, are you ready?
After registering, users can then create or join groups by sharing unique code words. Once users have joined a private game room, they are shown further storytelling content before voting to begin the escape challenge. Users can choose from one of 3 tasks. In the sentence correction task, users iteratively correct erroneous sentences to test their grammatical knowledge. One user is nominated to first identify if a sentence contains an error, and, if so, modify that sentence by selecting components using the Telegram contextual keyboard. During the task, the application tracks sentence-specific grammatical subcategory data for each user in order to later adapt difficulty based on challenging tasks. After one successful iteration, users collect one piece of a code word. After 4 successful iterations, all pieces have been collected, and the group can progress to the next task, first viewing their recent achievements, and then entering the code word to proceed. At this point, the collected performance data are used to suggest options for manually adjusting the difficulty. Based on this user's performance, she is given the option to focus on ing sentences. In the vocabulary guessing task analogous to the board game Taboo, users describe and guess vocabulary items provided through their private contextual keyboards. Again, after several iterations, users can review their most recent achievements. In the final discussion task, users are presented a text to guide discussion, as well as question prompts. As the discussion continues, the application tracks time and word count milestones in order to present new question prompts and fuel the discussion further. At the end of the task, users are polled on their perceived discussion difficulty and quality, which are used to evaluate the task in combination with additional metadata, such as word count. Finally, outside of the individual escape game rooms, individual users can review their current achievements in private conversation with the bot.
Yeah, so that's what escape lane looks like now. And we can move on to the next session where we'll briefly talk about how we evaluated escape lane and kind of verified our concept. We have completed 2 testing iterations after we had 2 and 3 tasks available. The first one was rather short. It was only a single session of 60 minutes. The first one we tried to make bigger to ensure that our results are more or less accurate. This was 30-minute sessions daily over a span of 2 weeks. For our testing, we have recruited 12 Russian teenagers. I mean, overall, so in 2 testing phases. And yeah, they were all learning English at school and had levels somewhere between B1 and B2. This is what the testing looked like. First, we sent out some info sheets with very basic idea of escape-ling, what it is and what you need to play it. This was something like you need Telegram installed, you need internet access, and so on. Then right before the test, we distributed a background questionnaire with questions like, what's your age? How long have you been learning English? What experience with other learning apps do you have? And so on. Then there was the actual game session where the testers were provided instructions like create a group or join a group, play the discussion game, or something along these lines. And finally, there was the finishing post questionnaire that had questions about the tester's satisfaction, their readiness to recommend the application further, and also some questions about general task understanding, like what can you learn from the discussion task? Now let's see the results. So as you see, almost every tester rated escape-ling to be at least 7 out of 10, so they were all quite satisfied, and everyone was also ready to recommend escape-ling further. This is not a very big sample, and we do acknowledge that, but however, we believe that over a bigger sample with such results, we will still stay somewhere in the positive half of the spectrum. However, testing is still in progress, and there will hopefully be some further testing iterations, and we're glad to hear your opinion about what can be improved in our testing process. And now I will pass the word back to Emma so that we can continue with the Outlook section.
Thank you, Maxime. So yeah, the work on the project is continuing. So this is a student-led project, and a new group of students has taken up the work that was done in the past year, and work on this project is set to continue still until March 2022. So some features are currently under construction. We are testing better testing techniques in terms of actual debugging and development testing techniques. We are implementing one new learning scenario, one new task, which will be a listening task, differently to what we've had so far. We are working on improving storytelling, so what guides the participants throughout their escape of the spaceship. And we are implementing some more elaborate NLP techniques to evaluate the language production of the users during the discussion task. And we are also adding more visualizations throughout the application. We are also considering starting a better cooperation with educators and people who would actually maybe like to make use of this application in their class. And in this sense, we welcome any suggestions. So now we have 5 minutes for a question. We can leave this slide up, I guess, with our contacts. And at this link, you can find some documentation of our project and more details on everything we've discussed so far. So thank you very much for your attention. And I guess we can get to some questions.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. The first one I think was a little bit earlier on, so I've learned a little bit more as the presentation continued. But in terms of the grammar, how robust is the grammar checker for what's acceptable?
So that was the sentence correction task, and
I think so, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think that's what the question is referring to, yes.
Yeah. So we actually have a corpus basically, and it's already hard coded. So we are not fully evaluating what they say, but they have multiple choice keyboards to choose from to identify the mistake in the sentence, and then they can type freely a suggestion to correct the sentence, but it is always only one word that would make it correct. And we already have it in our data set. Now, how robust is this data set? We have checked it over and over again, but we also acknowledge that there are some cases where it might be hard to actually take into consideration all of the possible ways that a single sentence could be corrected. And so we are working on implementing more robust feedback to the users in case they are not satisfied with how their answer was evaluated. And yeah, then
Yes,
I see that there is another.
Yeah, there's a
question.
second one. Yeah, go ahead. You can see the second one as well on the Q&A. So yes.
Yeah, by the way, thank you to Trevor for both of these questions. Now, I believe this, either Christian or Maxime could actually be able to address it. So you guys can feel free. What language level does this work well for or poorly with in terms of the users who interact with it?
I'll jump in first just to give my 2 cents. Maxime, feel free. Work well or poorly with, I think it's probably kind of like difficult to define like working well or poorly. If we could maybe think of like suitability or like just correlating our assumptions about the application's suitability for the target group, I would say like keeping in mind that we aim for like intermediate level learners. So like B2, IELTS, I think that would be probably, I don't know exactly that scale, but CEFR B2. If we were going a little lower on the scale, there might be some challenges as far as the narrative texts are concerned, or the actual like tasks which emphasize a lot of reading comprehension skills, which might be challenging to the users. At higher levels, it is like admittedly the case that, for example, the tasks are structured in such a way, specifically the vocabulary guessing task, that might be like overly simplistic. So, I mean, really like in terms of just the assumptions we make about the user's like language comprehension skills, as well as the data themselves, which are used to construct the task. Emma already mentioned the corpus from which are gathered the sentence correction data, which is a corpus for like intermediate level learners. On these different levels, there would be challenges, for example, to engagement and maybe just comprehension outside of that scope that we targeted.
Yeah, so we assume a basic knowledge of English also because the application starts off with English prompts. And there is some story that users are exposed to right from the start, but then there are levels and there is an adaptive component to our application that tries to target possible differences in users' proficiencies. But I guess I would, on a CFR scale, I would estimate A2 to B2 probably. C1 might still benefit from using this, but yeah, then that's what it would be.
Yeah, that's a good point, Emma. The whole like kind of concept of the adaptable difficulty is meant to like compensate perhaps at lower levels for some of the challenges of comprehensibility, at least in coordinating the tasks themselves. So that would have a mitigating effect, but nevertheless, yeah, it would be challenging.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, great. And Trevor says he's an ESL professor and is really interested in your idea, and he's also working on some gamification tasks. So that ends up getting us right to the time. So thanks so much for a really interesting presentation, and it's great to talk with all of you. And we'll move on to the next one. So thanks once again.